Congo? Congo. Yes, Congo the witch doctor. I worked with Congo at a place called Hubert's Museum that the locals used to call the flea circus because that was the feature of the show, was the flea circus. Hubert's Museum was in the basement of a big penny arcade on 42nd Street right off Broadway in New York. And Congo worked there every winter for many years. And other acts that were there over the years and stayed there was Esteline Pike, the sword swallower, CeeLo, the seal boy, and the people that ran the show, a black couple by the name of Charlie, oh gosh, can't think of his name now. But he was Chief Wufu, and his wife was Princess Wuji. And they had dancing girls in the annex, in the blow-off. And this was in 1960, the winter of 60-61. And the Vice Squad would come in there 5 times a day, maybe more, and check and make sure that the girls weren't doing something they shouldn't do back there in the Hoochie Coochie. They ended up wearing, when they were finished, they would have full one-piece bathing suits on, not bikinis, you know. And to show you how strict it was at that time, I was doing a ventriloquist act. And one of the gags was, I want to try you on some spelling, okay? I want you to spell the word boy. B-O-Y, boy. That's correct. Is that male or female? That's male. You're right. Spell the word girl. G-I-R-L, girl. That's correct. Is that male or female? Why, that's female. You're correct. Did you learn that in school? Heck no, I found that out for myself. Well, spell the word cat. C-A-T, cat. That's right. Is that male or female? Well, I'd have to see the cat first. And the vice police told me, you cannot tell those dirty jokes in the city of New York. We don't allow that sort of thing in New York. And so I had to cut that out of my routine. In 10 years, I'm going to say 12 years later, in that same location, the museum was long gone, and there was a porno movie theater in there. How things changed. Now today, 42nd Street is like it was in 1960s, as clean as a whistle.
Yeah, bring us back to that time when, you know, like something like Miss Hubert's was like a really important attraction on 42nd Street.
Had been there since before World War I. And it was the longest running show ever in New York City. And as I said, the feature of the show, which they charged extra admission for, was Professor Heckler's flea circus. And he actually had the live fleas, and he had worked behind like a desk, big desk, and he had this huge magnifying glass. And the people would stand around, and you would look through the magnifying glass, and you could see the fleas as they did their little tricks, you know.
But Hubert's was like a real, I mean, some of the acts, like, did you ever work with the Great Waldo?
No.
Did you?
I have to tell you a story about Waldo, though. The show that I started in the sideshow with was Daly Brothers Circus, big railroad show out of Gonzales, Texas. And the man who became my mentor was the manager there, Milt Robbins. And Waldo wrote a letter to Milt for a job. And, Dear Mr. Robbins, I am the great Waldo, the man who swallows the white rat. I would like to come with your show next season. I receive a salary of $100 a week. My wife travels with me, but she does not work. And we get a stateroom on the train, and we both have the privilege of eating in the cookhouse. Well, on that circus, there were only 2 staterooms on the train, and they weren't about to give one of them to a sideshow performer. Furthermore, no one rode that train that didn't work on the show. The women, if their husbands did something on the show and they weren't a performer or something, they worked as an usher or reserve seat people. And so he wrote Waldo back. He said, Dear Mr. Waldo, I am familiar with your act. And if you can find a circus that will pay you $100 a week, give you a stateroom on the train, allow your wife to travel with you and not work, and let you both eat in the cookhouse, please tell me what circus it is, and I'll swallow a white rat. So I never met Waldo.
So how many years you actually worked at Hubert's? I mean,
Just that one winter, part of that winter. I was had worked the Ringling Circus for 8 years. I was an unofficial partner with Nate Eagles. He had the contract, but he had already retired. He had a troop of midgets, and I had acts. So he had the contract, I had the acts. It made a nice combination. And we had the sideshow at Madison Square Garden from 1960 through 1967. That's when they tore down the garden, the old garden up on 49th Street. And they built the new one over Penn Station, which is so much smaller. There is no place to put the sideshow. And when we did that big sideshow in Washington, D.C. in '73 for the Ringling Show, and Mr. Fell told me, he said, "I want you to get on the train, go up to New York, and Lloyd Morgan is the manager of the other unit. He's expecting you, and find a place to put the sideshow." And when I got there, Lloyd said, "I know why you're here, and it's going to be a waste of your trip, I'm sorry to say, because I have gone over every inch of this building. There is no place to put a sideshow." And he was correct, there wasn't. There has never been one there.
Everybody we've talked to, everybody about Hubert's, they mention Congo.
Congo worked there every winter, for many, many years. And then in the summertime, he had his own show. And he was with the Reithofer Carnival for many years. And every year, Mr. Reithofer would buy him a new school bus, a used school bus, for him to carry the show in and live in. And I will digress a minute from Congo and tell you the story that Congo had this new school bus, and he had it all painted up. And he wanted some lettering on it, nice, of some kind. Congo could not read or write. And so he got Johnny Mia, the great banner painter, was on the show. And so he lettered the bus for Congo. He was very proud of that. And he would drive down the road, and other African Americans would see him and give him dirty looks and dirty gestures, and he couldn't understand why this was happening. And then he, finally got a little concerned about what did Johnny paint on there. And what Johnny had painted was, "This is Uncle Tom's cabin." But Congo was a master performer. His real name was Hezekiah Trammell. He owned a farm in Wisconsin, had it leased out. And he did things like he would take a crosscut saw, hand saw, and he would saw his feet. And I feel just fine about it. I do exploit them. Any performer that ever becomes a star is exploited by their management. I exploit them, and like a good manager does with a star, they become well paid for being exploited. Now, you are exploiting them. You're going to put their picture on television, but you're not paying them anything. So how do you feel about exploiting these handicapped people, these poor, unfortunate freaks, and not giving them anything to help them out? I have shut up a few reporters in my life. The one that I liked, though, was we did a thing. It used to be a program. It was CBS called West 57th Street, and Meredith Vieira. She was the one who was the spokesperson, and they came to Dallas, Texas, and did our show there. And so that was one of the questions that was asked. And I gave him, I didn't come quite that strong with it, but I came to the same thing. You're exploiting them now, and you're not paying them. I said, unless you want to go and give them all a donation. And so when the cut came, and I said to the director, I said, I know that's going to get cut out of the final project. He says, I promise you, that is so good, I will keep it in. And they did.
Really? Oh, that's great. That's neat. Yeah, I guess, Ward, you were starting to tell me Congo's real
About
name was
Congo.
Hezekiah.
Hezekiah Trammell. He had a farm in Wisconsin. He was very successful operating his own little show in the summertime, and every winter he went to New York City and he worked for Hubert's Museum. And he did an act where he did what we call the sword ladder act, only he did it with crosscut saws, and he would saw his foot, and so on. And but his featured thing was it's an old magic trick, but he did it so well that was called the sand and water. And you have 3 different colors of sand. We'll say red, white, and blue. And you take a handful of the sand and you let it run out of your hand into a bucket of water. Then you take the next color, and then the next color. And then you say to someone in the audience, I'm going to take the sand out of the bucket. It will be dry. Which color would you like to see come out? Whatever color. And he'd reach in the bucket, and he'd come up, and he'd hold his hand and let the sand run out dry. And the people loved it. But what he did to make his act interesting, before he was working, when the other acts were working on other stages, and he would call some little black girls over, and he'd say, "My, you're a pretty little girl. I'm Congo. I'm going to. This is a good sign to me because right before the Gulf War, we were getting lots of flyovers of jet planes on the way out, and when that happens, then I'll say, "Oh yeah, the war's going to start in a few days."
Okay, I'm sorry, Ward.
So anyway, Congo did this little act, but he would get these kids up, and he would, compliment them and get them to be friendly, and but then when he did his act, and he'd look at the little girls, and he'd get them to come close to him. I'm talking about like teenagers, and he'd say, "You a little mau mau. I'm the dead man. I've been dead for 300 years. I'm going to make your dress fall off." And he would get some, they would panic and they'd run out of the show and things. But he was so good, so convincing with what he did. And he made his own magic trick. And he also, in his dressing room was right alongside mine, and he cooked for himself, and oftentimes would make fried chicken. And one day I asked him, I said, "What are you cooking in there today, Congo?" He said, "Oh, I'm making fried chicken." I said, "Yeah, it smells like paraffin to me." But he was great, nice guy.